Welcome to tonight's Tanya class. We are studying Perek Memhei, chapter 45 in Tanya. And as always, every chapter is unique. Every chapter has its special message. And tonight's chapter in Tanya is a very, very important chapter. As the author teaches us a unique and special way to create a loving and awesome relationship for God. Because ultimately, as we know, we have an opportunity to connect to God. How do we connect to God? Through Torah, studying Torah, doing Mitzvot, and praying. Now, as we learned in Tanya, when you study Torah, so you're connecting to God through Torah, and when you do Mitzvot, and when you pray, you're connecting to God. But if you do it like a robot, mechanically, so it's great, but everything sits. All the godly inspiration sits, it doesn't move. In order for the Torah and the Mitzvot to move on high and to connect you with God through the 10 Sfirot, you have to do that by what? By having Aהבה and Yira, by being in love with God and being in awe of God. That is the fuel that will take you to the highest places. And we spoke about it for many chapters last couple of weeks. Tonight in chapter 45, Perek Memhei, the author introduces a new method, new at least for the Tanya here, to achieve this tremendous love for God, and that name of that method is called Rachamim. Rachamim in English means what? Compassion. Compassion. And the author explains very simple, that we spoke about Aהבה, love, we spoke about Yira, awe, and now we're going to talk about compassion. What is the difference between love, awe, and compassion? So the author explains like this, that Avram Avinu, Abraham, our forefathers, he represented what? Love. The love for God. Avram loved God, and basically he gave it to us as an inheritance. Yitzchok was Gvura, to be in awe of God. And Yaakov, who was the third of the patriarchs, he personified Rachamim, compassion, and this Yaakov that personified compassion, through the compassion, you're able to achieve the greatest heights, which is ultimately to serve God out of love. Now, what does that mean to have compassion? So, it's brought down actually in the Zohar, and it says like this, that what is compassion? Compassion in Hebrew is Rachamim. What's Rachamim? So it says in the Zohar like this, that chesed, which is kindness, which is Abraham, it resembles the idea of what? Spiritually mayim, water. Well, because water goes down, right? It penetrates. So chesed is when you give, right? You give from yourself to someone else. It's going, so to speak, not physically, but from a higher place to a spiritual level. As you're giving to someone, mayim has the power that it goes through. That is what? Anything you think of water, you think about chesed, you think about kindness, you think about love. In the word Rachamim, Rachamim is made up of two words, so to speak, Reish Ches, and then Mayim. The last part of Rachamim is Mayim. So Mayim, you see, Aהבה is in the word of Rachamim. In the first half of the word, the Reish Ches numerically is 208. And Yitzchok, the second of the patriarchs, which resembles what? Gvura, his numerical value is also 208. Yud is 10, Sadik is 90, Ches is 8, and Kuf is 100, 208. So Yitzchok, which is 208, resembles the Reish Ches of Rachamim, and Avram, the Mayim, represents what? Represents the Chesed, which is also in Rachamim. So you see that Rachamim has, so to speak, a blend and a mixture of Aהבה and Yira, and that creates ultimately the most nicest balance. So when a person evokes Rachamim, then you can have tremendous Aהבה. So the author explains, how do you evoke Rachamim? So he says very simple. It's all about ultimately meditation. What's the meditation of Rachamim? Because a person thinks for a moment and he says, oh my gosh, who created the world? God created the world. Who created me? God created me. God gave me a physical body, and also God gave me a neshama. What is a neshama? A neshama is a part of God. And this part of God is within me. Every one of us have a part of God within us. We have a godly spark within us that allows us to live and thrive and have an amazing life. So we all have a part of God within us. Now, this part of God that we have within us, where was it before it came into our body? It was in heaven, in a great place. In other words, as the Alter describes it, it was connected with the infinite life, Chaye HaChayim, the life itself, the source of all life. So think about it. This infinite life that was connected with the infinite power of God, with life itself, the source of life, has to take a train, a jet, however it travels down here, down. We're not talking only not physically high or low, but spiritually. It left this infinite place where God is revealed. It left the place where the source of life, and it comes down to this physical, materialistic world, which we know is a place which God is concealed. Not only is God concealed, but God allowed klipot and sikhr akra, things that don't have any respect or any recognition of God and godliness, to exist in this physical world. So think about it. This soul was like basking in the glory of God. And it's over here in this dark place, lost. So if you think for a moment, what is rachamim? What is compassion? Let's say, for example, you have a good friend. Good friend. A real good friend. You spent a lot of time with the person. It could be a friend. It could be a family member. And you know, you live in a community with them. And one day they go for a walk out in the forest and they get lost. This huge forest. And nobody can find them. You can't find them. So someone that you're close to, someone that means something to you, you start feeling bad. What do you feel bad? Because Nebuch, the person, your friend, your relative, is in danger. Is not with his family, not with the community. It brings out a certain sense of rahmanut. And as you think about this, what happens now? Now you start evoking feelings for this friend or this family member that you never had before. What happened? Because when somebody is going through a tough time, and when someone's going through a challenge, and when someone's lost, it's a natural thing, if you're human at least, to have rahmanut. Take the same thing. If you think for a moment about the godly spark that came down to your body, into your life, to be with you, it's lost. It's like your friend, the relative that's lost in the forest. The place of an neshama is not in a physical body confined to a body, a materialistic confined body. It's the place is in heaven. So this soul is lost, locked up in a body. Or as the Alter Rabbi uses the expression, a Zohar expression from Kabbalah, mashcha de chivya, which basically it's like the skin of a snake, which is like the essence of klipot. Klipot is a shell where godliness is not revealed there. That's where the body, that's where the soul is. Now, so two parts to it. One is, look where it was. It was in heaven. And the second part is, now you watch the way it came down to a place where it's concealed, God's not revealed, and it's here. Where it was, where it came to. That's point number one. Point number two, it's living in your body. That means it's part of your family, your unique, your immediate family, which is you. And every single time you don't do a mitzvah that you could do, or on the contrary, not only don't do a mitzvah you could do, you actually transgress one of the 365 negative commandments, how do you think the soul feels? You're doing the antithesis of God wants. You have a mitzvah to do right now, whether it's to pray, whether it's to study, whether it's to do a mitzvah, whether it's to give charity, and you don't do it, how do you think the soul feels? Oh my gosh, very painful. Or if you do one of the 365 negative commandments you should not be, you go do it anyway, what do you think the soul feels? Torture. This is not a comfortable environment. The soul was in a place where everybody did what God wanted. Everybody was connected to God. It comes down to this materialistic world and busy with what? Anything counter to godliness? So the Alter says, when you think about the fact where the soul was, where the soul is, and not only where it was and where it is, but even and especially after, God forbid, never we sin, sometimes we don't do what we're supposed to. Shouldn't that evoke compassion within you? Now what happens once you have compassion? Now the good emotions start coming out. Now you have this love for God. Look, he allowed the godly spark to come down to this world. He allowed the godly spark to come and hang out with us human beings that are not angels. We do make mistakes. So that we should have a godly spark within us. Now when you start praying, when you meditate this before you pray, or before you study, or before you do a mitzvah, it's a whole different mitzvah. It's a whole different prayer, it's a whole different study. Why? Because now you've evoked a connection with your godly soul, and you evoked a feeling for it, and you want to make the godly soul feel good. It's like, let's say for example, your friend is finally brought out, and they find him after a 3-day search, 24 hours a day. When you see that child, right, or an adult, what feelings do you have for that child? Oh my gosh, you're so happy that he's alive, or she's alive. The same thing also when you meditate about your soul before you go to pray, before you go to study, and before you go to do a mitzvah. Why after when you're praying, you're really, really praying. Because you're excited that you're allowing your soul to feel comfortable, that he has a place in this world, that he can also feel a connection to God in a real way. Or he feels like through Torah study he can have like a loving relationship with God. You're taking that soul out of prison on a certain level. Or when you're doing a mitzvah, he feels great, and you want to be able to do more mitzvot, so he should feel even better, and so on and so forth. Now, how do we have this within us? So the Alter says that just like we know that Abraham gave us an inheritance, the idea for loving of God, Yaakov gave us as an inheritance that idea to be able to have compassion, real compassion for God. And he brings down the story where it's brought down in the Bible, it's brought down in the Torah, where when Yaakov went to, left his parents' house to go look for a shidduch, he went to look for a wife. So he came and he met the famous story in the Torah where he met Rachel at the well. And it says that by Yitzchok, Yaakov and Rachel, when Yaakov meets Rachel, he goes ahead and he gives her a kiss. And he picks up his voice and he cries. And then he tells her the whole story. So everyone asks a simple question, I mean, what kind of crazy thing is this? Yaakov meets a woman on the street, goes over and kisses her. And then he starts crying. And then he tells her the whole story. How does that work? I mean, even regular people don't do that. I'm not talking about today. I'm talking civilized societies, right?
Well, that was his line.
Huh?
That was his pickup line.
That was the thing. Okay. So the commentaries say very simple. No. The Torah is telling us what happened. No, the end what happened. Do you know what the end happened is? He kissed her. What brought about that he should kiss her? Then the Torah goes back and explains what happened. They met. And he told her who he is and where he's from. And then he cried. And then the kiss came at the end. But the Torah is telling you like backwards. This is what the end product was. There was a kiss. How did it happen? Because of the whole story. He met her and he told her the whole story and they spoke and they went on a date, right? And he cried for her, etc. Now, what does that mean? The Torah tells us a nice story. It's a nice story. Nice romantic story, right? We always say, read the Torah with a little imagination. You don't have to go to the movies. The best stories. You have romance, horror, all this good stuff in there. But why does the Torah tell us a story? Because we know that it's not only a physical story, what happened in the past, but it's really a spiritual story. Why? Because according to Kabbalah, what does Rachel resemble? Rachel resembles the Jewish people. Yaakov, as we know, resembles what? The midah of rachamim, compassion of which world? The world of atsilut. So Yaakov, compassion from atsilut, meets who? Meets the Jewish people. Meets Rachel, who personifies the Jewish people. And he gives her, infuses within her, the power of rachamim and the power of compassion from atsilut. And that's why each and every one of us, we don't have to create compassion. We have compassion. From an inheritance from Jacob. He gave it within us. Our job is to reveal it. Our job is to reveal it. How do we reveal it? How do we reveal it? So one thing is what, like we explained before, by meditation. And think about the way the godly spark was in heaven. It came down to this world. Once it came down to this world, all the sins that we're doing, you feel bad for it. So then, what do you want to do? You want the soul, your soul, to have a compassionate relationship with God on the level of what? A kissing relationship with God. How do you do that? So the author explains like this. there's 3 levels of bonding. The lowest level is when a person sits down and you take out a Chumash, you take out a Mishnayos, you take out some Kabbalah, take out a Tanya, whatever you're studying, whatever you like in Judaism, Medrash, whatever it may be, Talmud, Mishnah, and you sit down and you study Torah. When you sit down to study Torah, so it's you, using your mind, your heart, your feelings, and you're studying Torah. Whose Torah are you studying? It's God's Torah. So any time you're sitting and studying Torah, that's like you're having a romantic relationship with God, one as if you were like kissing God. Why? Because think about it. When you're studying Torah, you're you, and the Torah is in the book. When you're studying it, what are you doing? You're taking the Torah into you, in your mind, in your heart, in your whole body. Sometimes you get excited about it. So that's called a pneumius relationship, an internal relationship with God. So anytime you study Torah, you're creating a חיבוק נשיקין. You're creating a connection which is almost like a physical kiss. Think about it, using your mouth, right? You read the words you're saying, you have feelings for it, you're creating a loving, beautiful relationship with God. But then, that's called what? A kiss. We know in a relationship, there's not only there's a kiss, there's also hugging. How do you accomplish hugging? So, the author explains, hugging is accomplished by doing a mitzvah. Why is that? Because what happens when you do a mitzvah? Irrelevant, whether you're putting on tefillin, whether you're keeping kosher, Shabbat, or whatever the mitzvah, 613 commandments, so whether the 248 positive or the 365 negative, you're not internalizing within you. It's a mitzvah you're doing externally. Tefillin, you put outside of you. Mezuzah, you put on the doorpost. Shabbat, right? It's a day that you observe. That is like a hug. So basically, everything you're putting on in tefillin, that's like a hug with God. You kiss the mezuzah, you put up the mezuzah, you kiss the mezuzah, it's a hug with God. In other words, it's external, it wraps you around. It's too powerful to be internal. Shabbat. Every Shabbat, you observe Shabbat, that's called a weekend hug from God. Right? A whole weekend you got a hug from God. Doesn't it feel good, Shabbat? Now you know why, because God's hugging you and you're allowing Him to hug you. God hugs you on Shabbat. The question is, do you allow Him and do you feel it? But if you think about it, you're going to feel the hug, because that's what happens anytime you do a mitzvah. But then the Alter says there's a higher level of a kiss. There's 2 levels in kissing. The lower level, you just study Torah, and then he says a higher level of kiss, where you're actually literally kissing God deeper than a hug. When is that? That is when you study Torah. But not only do you study Torah, but you meditate on the Torah study. When you meditate on the Torah study, you know what happens? You're using your intellect. But not only intellect, deep intellect. And when you use your deep intellect, you know what happens? You connect on a much deeper level, even more than a hug. So in other words, there's 3 levels. One basic level, you study Torah, that's a kiss with God. You do a mitzvah, you're hugging with God. But then when you study Torah, but you actually meditate on it, and you think about it, and you close your eyes, and you really connect to the concepts that you're studying, that's called the ultimate kiss with God. But what's interesting is, even though that Torah study, its primary force is a kiss, it also has the component of a hug in there too. Just like mitzvah, even though the primary experience is a hug, but it also has the aspect of a kiss in it as well. They have both. The question, what's the dominant force? But ultimately, what the author brings out, the goal of creating this compassion, which creates this real loving relationship with God, on the level of a kiss, on the level of a hug, whatever level it might be, ultimately the goal is one goal. What is the goal? The goal is that when after you arouse within yourself that compassion through meditation of where the soul was, where the soul is, and the challenges it has, you know what happens? You create this Ava, Rabba, high level of love. Not low level love, high level of love. Very, very powerful high level of God, love. This tremendous love for God. And this is brought about what? Through the idea of Rachman. So in other words, what the author explains to us in this chapter is that it's almost like a, I'm not going to call it a shortcut, but it's in a certain way, it's an easy way to create an experience with God, a really powerful experience with God. A powerful experience of studying Torah, doing mitzvot, and praying, that's the basics. But to do it with love and awe, By meditating on the fact that the soul came down to this world, the fact that the soul is struggling in this world, you have compassion, you evoke compassion with the soul, and when you evoke the compassion with the soul, your spirit that Yaakov gave with each and every one of us to have real compassion will create the deepest relationship, as we call it in the word of Kabbalah, like a kissing relationship, a hugging relationship with God, that will bring out such compassion that the flow for God, the flow of love for God will be flowing, and you'll experience true aהבה, true great love, and there's nothing like being in a great and loving relationship with God.